Now, Vanessa, Trump obviously was grabbing the headlines yesterday at the UNGA, but he wasn't the only thing that was going on there over the last couple of days. Uh, Jolani, in fact, was making an appearance. So what happened there?
Yes, well, apparently the first Syrian president to attend the UNGA in New York for almost 6 decades. The fact that he's an unelected president, he's formerly ISIS and Al Qaeda, had a bounty of 10 million on his head. And according to the establishment narratives, his group was responsible for the Twin Towers. So quite extraordinary that he's seen arriving and receiving red carpet treatment. While, in fact, back in Syria, the massacres continue. The following video is of the current wildfires that have been raging for the last 3 days across Wadi Nasara, which is basically translated as the Valley of the Christians, which is an area to the south of Homs, beautiful area where historic churches and cultural edifices and infrastructure are now in danger of being destroyed. And of course, what we're hearing are reports from inside Syria that HTS themselves started the fires by dropping the thermal incendiary bombs by drones, just as they've done previously in Latakia, according to reports from people on the coast, of course, majority Alawites that have been ethnically cleansed since Jolani came to power. And here we have some pretty dreadful footage of Jolani arriving at the UNGA, the bustle of bodyguards around him, all of them looking extremely Takfiri-like to me. And he arrives with full pomp and ceremony, touching his hand to his heart as if he has one, while he enters the UNGA. He met with Marco Rubio, of course, Trump's point man in the Middle East, along with many others, of course. And one of the priorities of their discussion is the security agreement between Israel and Syria. That, of course, is one of the tasks that Jolani was given once he came to power by the US and the entire Zionist bloc. A special event, which I haven't had the stomach to watch yet, but I will do, was for the Middle East Institute to host Jolani, and none other than Charles Lister. Of course, Charles Lister, a member of the MEI, who invented the 70,000 moderate rebels, the narrative that was picked up at the time by David Cameron to excuse the funding of the terrorist groups in Syria to bring down the former Syrian government. And then, of course, he had a very friendly chat with ex-CIA Chief General Petraeus, who hails the former Al-Qaeda leader for clear vision in Syria. I'm not quite sure how these people can utter such phrases when an ongoing massacre of the Syrian people is occurring from north to south under Jolani's unelected Takfiri regime. But let's have a reminder also of Petraeus's role himself in the downfall of Syria. Seymour Hersh, Petraeus established a rat line between Libya and Syria to send weapons to the Nusra Front, which of course is Al-Qaeda, the group that was founded not only by Jolani, but also by Assad al-Shabani, who's the foreign minister, also at the UNGA, and other extremist groups seeking to topple the government of former Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. They mentioned Timber Sycamore, of course, which was a budget of over $1 billion per year given to around 500 moderate rebels, but ended up in the hands of ISIS by accident, of course. According to former French intelligence officer Thierry Meyssan, Petraeus continued to help fund Al-Qaeda groups, including ISIS, after he was forced to resign from the CIA in 2012 after a sex scandal. I just want to show Petraeus's introduction to Jolani, which is kind of, we were talking this morning, Mike, about the fact that these figures like Ambassador Robert Ford, who was responsible for much of the creation of the death squads, the Free Syrian Army in Syria, who was kind of squealing in delight over meeting with Jolani over the last few years, both in Idlib and then in Damascus in 2025. And here we have Petraeus literally introducing him but a reminder to people that rumors are that it was Petraeus himself who led the radicalization and the indoctrination of Jolani while he was in prison in Iraq. So an interesting introduction from Petraeus here.
Because the fact is that we were on different sides when I was commanding the surge in Iraq. You were, of course, detained by U.S. forces for some 5 years, including, again, when I was the 4-star there. And here you are now as the president of Syria.
I'm not going to show anything of what Jolani actually says because it's total MI6 Tony Blair speak. I mean, he says nothing different to the script that he's been given since December 2024. But in case people are worried, here Petraeus asks Jolani about his own personal mental health.
So this next one is about you personally. How are you holding up under all this pressure? Are you getting time to do some thinking? Are you getting enough sleep at night? Again, I've been there, and it is so very, very hard. And your many fans, and I am one of them, we do have worries.
I mean, this is just grotesque. This man was responsible for mass beheadings, executions, terrorist attacks in Iraq, even before he came to Syria, and now is responsible for the mass ethnic cleansing of minorities in Syria that are barely mentioned in the entire interview. And I don't know. I mean, I would love people's comments, but I just find this absolutely abhorrent that he's being feted to such a degree and that allegedly he's in among friends and allies. Well, what does that tell you about the US regimes, successive regimes that have supported the breakdown of Syria and the destruction of the people of Syria?
Charles, let's ask for your thoughts on that.
I think that engagement between Jolani and Petraeus has to be one of the most extraordinary things that I've seen in recent times. And it should cause anybody believing themselves to be on either side to call into question absolutely everything they thought they believed or stood for. It makes a total mockery of everything Petraeus has supposedly done in his career or what he should have done it for. And exactly the same should be said of Jolani. I mean, it dispels any sense of doubt that this entire narrative and situation is driven by forces out of sight that we are apparently never told about. Absolutely extraordinary. The only thing I would add on UK column content is there's a very good interview on the website with Michael Yon, Ben Rubin interviewing Michael Yon. It's called Who Runs the Jungle? And Yon gives a very interesting anecdote about bumping into Petraeus, who he knows, at an airport. So please go and listen to that interview.
Thank you, Charles. Okay, let's move on. If you like what the UK column does, we do need your ongoing support. We want to say a massive thank you once again to everybody that is contributing. If you would like to help us out, there's a big blue button on the front page of the website that will take you to a page that will give you the various options. If you can't help us financially, that is fine, but please do help us by sharing our material because we have to deal with the censorship regime. And that helps us a great deal. Another reminder that tickets are all sold out for the York event on the 18th of October. However, you can still follow along on the live stream. So if you haven't got a ticket for that, please consider it. And that's details are on the UK column shop. Now, Jerm is still in China. So tonight we're rerunning the interview that he did with Andrew Wakefield. So that starts at 7 p.m. And tomorrow, I'm going to be speaking to Vanessa at 1 p.m. Vanessa, very briefly, just tell us a little bit about this.
Well, I think it's just a very open discussion that we had, Mike, about the way that the sectarian divisions are going to be weaponized against Western populations, having historically been used, of course, to divide and conquer the countries, particularly of West Asia, or as it's known, the Middle East.
Yes, thank you for that. And so that will go out at 1 p.m. on the live stream tomorrow. So join us for that. I just want to remind everybody of the interview that went out yesterday at 1 p.m. With Andrea Klaric. So I was speaking to Andrea about engagement with people in Croatia on issues such as migration, digital ID, CDBC, censorship, attitudes to the war narrative. And we also discuss what appeared to be attempts to recreate tensions which led to the war with Serbia in the 1990s. So if you didn't see that yesterday, we've had some really good feedback on that. Please do join us for that, or get on the website and watch that. And Charles, then the Food and Health Festival.
Yes, this is being run in Edinburgh by Common Knowledge Edinburgh this Sunday, the 28th of September. I will be there speaking. Diane will also be there, and it will be a very wide-ranging day considering all factors pertaining to your control of food and health.
And Charles, just remind us of the 1,000 Words podcast just before we show the little trailer.
The 1,000 Word podcast is something that's coming to UK Column. We're absolutely delighted that it is. It involves Jake Fern, the portrait artist, interviewing whilst he paints the portrait of the subject. And he's had tremendous success with it to date. And it just gives a fascinating insight into somebody that a different interview technique doesn't quite capture. And it's a really, really interesting way of engaging with the subject, and indeed a phenomenal painting to look at the end.
1,000 Words is coming to UK Column. Watch Katie Jo Murphy, co-founder of Hope Sussex, sit for her portrait whilst deep diving into life, the universe and everything. First episode airs this weekend on UK Column.
And Charles, correct me if I'm wrong, that's 7 p.m. on Sunday?
Correct.
Thank you.
Absolutely it is.
Yep. Okay, thank you.